To get started, let me introduce Stuart Waterman. He's a content strategist for LibraryOn, a program funded by the Arts Council England and powered by the British Library. And Stuart himself lives in Walthamstow, northeast London, and has worked in content strategy and online community roles for agencies, nonprofits, and also startups. And in the last 12 months, he's taken over 800 photos in libraries. And I'm personally very excited about this because I've been wanting to hear about LibraryOn for ages. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Stuart, and please take it away.
Cheers, Arved. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. So yes, I'm going to talk to you about LibraryOn's quest to become a digital front door for libraries. If you haven't visited LibraryOn before, you can do so at libraryon.org. And this is me. I have a self-description. I am a white man in my 40s with dark brown hair, a moustache and glasses. The moustache is a recent addition, as you may be able to see. I've been working as part of the LibraryOn team for about 2.5 years, and I work on web content and associated things as part of the wider team. My email address is there, should you want to contact me at any point after this. This is the LibraryOn team. There's 10 of us currently. We are currently recruiting a new product manager, so we'll soon be 11. And we are kind of led by Liz White, who is Director of Library Partnerships at the British Library. And we're a cross-functional team, so we have web development, design, marketing, etc., all within one team, and we endeavour to work to agile product development principles, which I'll touch on a little bit later. So this is what I'm going to cover today: why LibraryOn exists, what we've done so far, the challenges we've faced along the way, the future, and how you can help us build it, and then hopefully we'll have some time for discussion at the end. So why is LibraryOn a thing? The idea of some kind of digital leveling up, for want of a better term, for public libraries has been knocking around for around a decade, leading to reports from government departments and associated bodies. Going back to at least 2014, this culminated in a June 2019 report by the British Library, in which a number of potential avenues were considered as a way forward for libraries to, I guess, become more digitally capable or digitally enabled. So this report was called Digital Transformation for UK Public Libraries, 5 Approaches to a Single Digital Presence. Just tripped off the tongue. And its recommendation was for the creation of one library brand, amongst other things. So the feeling was that this could provide a home for whatever functional work followed as part of a single digital presence. And this was seen as more feasible than launching straight into a more complex proposition, such as deep shared infrastructure across all libraries or a universal library card. Some of those deeper kind of integrations we've started to touch on, I'd say, in the last couple of years. But as I say, we kind of started from this brand positioning, I suppose. We are funded by Arts Council England, and powered by the British Library. I work in the St Pancras office, and some staff also work out of the Boston Spa office of the British Library, although we generally only come into the office a couple of days a week. Most of us work from home quite a lot. So funding from Arts Council England arrived in 2022, and the first thing that happened was the creation of the visual brand of LibraryOn, the name LibraryOn as well, so that we didn't have to keep referring to Single Digital Presence, or SDP. The brand has generally been received well in that it's distinctive, colourful, and adapts well to different uses, such as newsletters, ads, events, etc. So you'll see various treatments of this brand in my presentation. But brand aside, what did we want this kind of program to try and do at a strategic level? So we wanted a unified national brand for an admittedly fragmented ecosystem. There are obviously lots of different library authorities around England. I will pause there and say, as we are funded by Arts Council England, technically LibraryOn is aimed at English libraries. That, however, is not generally how we've thought about it. We've always thought of it as a national thing, but it has meant that our kind of interface with library services from the devolved nations hasn't been as deep as it has been with English libraries up to this point. There are signs that that may be about to change, though. So, yeah, fingers crossed. A program that invests in national and local digital infrastructure and that is built scalably so it can grow in various directions and accommodate various different things. A centralized source of information and events for libraries. An accessible digital front door, inspiring engagement and connection. And a place where we can start reshaping outdated perceptions and reinforcing the value of libraries. So there was some discovery research that was done before I joined. An agency came along and did user research for people, asked people what they thought of libraries, why they used them, why they didn't use them, etc., etc. And you probably won't be surprised to hear that a lot of outdated perceptions and stereotypes around what you might expect at a library were still kind of hanging around. So we definitely felt that there was an opportunity to try and shift some of those. And then ultimately our North Star goal that kind of guides us is to increase physical and digital visits to libraries, whether in person or digitally. This is currently quite a hard thing to measure, but we measure what we can to judge whether we're making a difference, more of which later. So what have we done so far? I've broken this down a little bit. I'll talk about sector engagement and partnership, product, grants, and marketing. So I'll start with sector engagement and partnership. From the outset, there was an agreement internally that we really need to engage with the public library sector regularly. Library authorities could sense check things that we were thinking about. They could advise on customer behavior, what things people didn't know about libraries, what they felt were the most prominent things that needed to be addressed. And importantly, they could connect us to people who use and love libraries. So when I joined, I was really excited from the beginning at the opportunity to amplify the life-changing capabilities of libraries. There's a lot of brands out there that kind of aspire to that kind of life-changing narrative or whatever. Libraries can literally say that they change lives, which is something that is really exciting to be able to work with. So we've put a lot of effort into relationship building with sector bodies, etc. Some of our engagement tactics, we do a monthly drop-in on Zoom that anybody in the library sector is welcome to join. We send out a newsletter every month that is written for and aimed at the public library sector. We've created a community of practice around the grants program that we ran, which I'll explain more about later. And aligned to that, we also created a kind of a Basecamp community too. In terms of sector bodies and organizations, we're in close contact with the likes of Libraries Connected, our colleagues at the British Library, the Living Knowledge Network, who have good relationships with libraries as well. Arts Council England, obviously, as our funders, we're in regular contact with, and we've spoken to SILIP quite a bit as well. Content and marketing partnerships have included ways that we have told real stories from libraries as the basis for our website content. We've created a library marketing community, and that has led to lots of social media collaborations, and that's pretty much become business as usual for us. And obviously we have the opportunity to leverage the British Library as a way to expand reach for those kind of social media collaborations. And then we've also been building relationships with related organizations who tend to link in with libraries a lot, like Find My Past, British Newspaper Archive, BFI and their BFI replay service, and people like RNIB, who we've worked with quite a bit. So it's been really important for us to ground ourselves in these kind of relationships and these kind of partnerships, as opposed to being seen as something that comes out of the British Library, swoops in and kind of says, you know, this is what libraries need to do. You know, we needed to start from a place of humility and acknowledge where we could gain value from the sector and sector related bodies. So I'll move on to talk about product now. When I talk about product in this kind of sense, what I mean is a functional thing, a functional digital thing that delivers some kind of practical utility to people, delivers value to them as a reward for them taking an action. So early on, the notion of a national library map kind of emerged as a good starting point for us. It seemed strange that something like this didn't exist at a national level. And this is where we worked with Dave Rowe from Libraries Hacked, who is an open data advocate and strong libraries fan, who's done brilliant work pulling together a data set for UK libraries, which was no small feat. And in kind of building a relationship with Dave, we learned a lot about the challenges around data provision for libraries. But his kind of data set provided the kind of starting point for us to build this map and start putting that out there and testing it and gauging responses. Since then, we've iterated on the library map to improve the user experience and enable search engines to better index the pages on our site. Now you'll often see Library on page 1 of searches for libraries. We're trying to build further on this to adequately cater to things like the growing number of community managed libraries, which are somewhat underserved by the map currently. But the idea with this wasn't to kind of say, well, you don't need local authority library websites anymore, but it was a way to perhaps standardize what discovery might look like if you're not already familiar with libraries, if you don't already go to them. If your first experience on searching for a library is a local authority website, the experience you get could go kind of either way, really. The reality is that a lot of local authority websites, understandably, are kitted out to direct people to find out when their bins are going to be collected, or you know, things like that. One thing that we found is library information can tend to be a little bit buried, can feel a little bit deprioritized, and so sometimes the user experience of those pages isn't great. Sometimes finding out the opening times can be a little bit difficult to discern. So we wanted to try and present some kind of standardized way of providing an endpoint to discovering libraries. We've iterated on this, as I said, multiple times. Recently, there's been a unique user experience challenge around opening times. You know, there aren't many, if any, nationwide services with local branches that have such a variety of quite idiosyncratic opening times. So, you know, you'll have libraries that open, then close, then open again. Libraries that are staffed for part of the day and then self-service for another part of the day. So trying to present that in a way that is easily understandable visually has been quite a challenge for our designer, but I think quite an enjoyable one. So this is where we're at currently. We've kind of started being able to show this. And then we've also started trying to show the different facilities and services that libraries offer. So, you know, if somewhere has bookable space or runs children's activities, etc., it's important to be able to show that. We've started showing accessibility information, and we're trying to lay it all out in quite a nice and understandable hierarchy of information for each library. And then we've also started embedding library tours. We've seen a lot of these in the last kind of year or so as part of the grant scheme that we ran. A lot of libraries wanted to get these created and put on their websites. Great thing about that is they are easily embeddable on our library pages as well. So they are a really useful way if someone has never been to a library before or hasn't been in 20 years and they don't know what it looks like. They don't know what to expect when they walk through the door. They don't know where the front desk is or whatever. Like any one of those things can be enough to put someone off exploring their library. So to be able to provide this visual information in a user-friendly format is really useful.
Stuart, sorry, can I just interrupt you really quick?
Yeah.
There was a question in the chat from Jasmine who asks if that is still a thing that you can get a grant for making a digital tour.
The grants program has ended, unfortunately. I gather there is a new, or I think Luke Burton posted recently that there is a new Libraries Improvement Fund about to start or be released or something. So that might be something to keep an eye on if in lieu of LibraryOn grant funding. But yeah, sorry, that ended last year, I'm afraid.
You dangle these things in front of us.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
I mean, we did try and publicize it as widely as possible. I will come on to how many library services did benefit from the grants program, but I'm sorry if yours wasn't one of them, Jasmine. So another thing we've been working on is adding events to our site. So the idea here is to expand on just showing libraries to show all of the events that are happening at libraries, because those can be a really useful way into libraries as well. You might not be a library member, but you might be interested in an event that a library is running. And once you go to that event, you're in the library, you know, presumably there are then going to be ways and means to get you to sign up to join the library. So this is something that we've released recently. It's done with APIs, so we've integrated with Eventbrite and Solus so far. We are currently kind of publicizing this capability. If your library service would like your library events added to our site and you happen to use Eventbrite or Solus, do give us a shout. We also would like to know what other event providers we should consider integrating with, because I'm sure there are ones that we probably haven't heard of yet. But yeah, this is something that we are quite excited about. And then alongside the functional stuff, we've been telling stories to move into that kind of perception shifting piece, I suppose. This content has all been based around true stories from library customers, volunteers and staff, sits along prominent calls to action to visit your nearest library or find your nearest library. And we're going to be adding events discovery to these pages in due course as well. So again, we're kind of touching on the left there, this kind of life-changing element of libraries, as well as, you know, slightly more prosaic stuff like learning how to use your device to do your shopping or whatever. And then other content stuff that we've been doing recently, we've been investigating special collections and improving public awareness of those. This has been quite an interesting thing to work on. We kind of have offered a content digitization option for libraries who have stuff that has kind of been, you know, hidden away in basements and they haven't had an option to digitize it. One thing that we did was we worked with Nottingham around their history of Nottingham lace. They had a lot of artifacts that told the story of how the city of Nottingham was shaped by the lace industry and its importance to the British Empire. So we went up there, we met them, they showed us through their archives. We found some really cool things like on the right here, these letters from people who worked in lace factories when they were really young, children basically. So, you know, we were essentially talking about child labor here, but some really interesting insights into what that was like. And then we spoke to a librarian and created a video where she recommended books around the topic, etc. This was received quite well. Locally, we got some good local press out of it, and it helped bring it to more people's attention. And we're working on a few more stories around special collections in libraries. One that we hope to get out there soon, it's out there in a beta form, but we've got a little bit more to do to it, is the early days of circus. So Wakefield libraries had quite a significant cache of these bills that are like really fragile and crispy. Some of them from the 18th century and early 19th century. So we've digitized those and we're building an interface through which people will be able to explore these, really zoom in and read them, and also get contextual like information through these little hotspot type things. So yeah, we're hopefully releasing that soon. And then we've got some other special collection stories coming up soon as well. I'll touch on some of those in a bit. And then the special collections thing started as a pilot. Events started as a pilot. Another pilot that we started but haven't kind of followed through with, we've kind of deprioritized it for now, was integrating library catalogs within our site. We did this with Newcastle and their provider, PTFS. And this meant that you could kind of search a catalog for your library service, only Newcastle in this kind of pilot version, and then, you know, identify if a book is available and then be taken through to the Newcastle site to complete that journey. We have deprioritized this in favor of other features for now, but we might come back to it. It was a useful thing to get a sense of what was required to implement this kind of functionality. And ultimately, if you talk about a platform that represents libraries at a national level, you know, that kind of book catalog, book loaning journey feels, you know, like it should be there. So, but it's not straightforward. It's not easy, like a lot about the work we've done. So that was the product side of things. I've whizzed through. I'm going to talk about our grants program now. Not to wind Jasmine up more, but so this program was part of our initial funding from Arts Council England. We were tasked with running a £1.5 million grant program to help libraries improve their digital capabilities, improve their online presence, improve their discoverability. An evaluation report of this was recently published. So we distributed almost £1.5 million. The libraries that took part have experienced significant increase in digital user engagement. People have a better understanding of the range of digital offers their library offers. Used offers twice there. It's not very good. But this infographic kind of shows the range of project types supported by the program and the library authorities that delivered them. Got a bit more information on these. So Darlington was one of the library authorities that got these virtual tours created. And they've seen a huge surge in traffic. Yeah, I mean, they went down really well in a nutshell. And then West Sussex created some films, which also helped deliver quite a lot of traffic, I gather, and was really effective in promoting the Sensory Story Magic activity page, which is a initiative they put together for young people with sensory processing challenges. So that evaluation is available to read if you're at all interested. And then at the end of that, we ran an event at the British Library called Press Play. And it kind of hosted sessions exploring digital opportunities and ideas around digital and technology for libraries. Topics focused on innovation, understanding users, digital inclusion, accessibility, measuring digital impact, etc., etc. And there were some really good insights from recipients of the LibraryOn grants program as well, which they were happy to share with the sector at large. Right, I'm going to move on to marketing. I'm whizzing through this. I mean, hopefully some of it is of interest, and you can go off and explore things if you like, or ask questions afterwards. Indeed. So in January 2024, we were joined by our senior marketing manager, Jenny Pierce. She has previously worked on the Business and IP Centre network out of the British Library. So brought experience working with libraries and within the British Library kind of infrastructure. She set out these goals as part of the marketing strategy and got our social channels underway in earnest. We worked with an agency to help kind of pull together our national marketing campaign last year. And I thought this was quite a useful thing they put together. We were kind of making it clear that a journey might start with LibraryOn, but we point people towards libraries. They are the end destination. They are the ultimate destination. It's a quite an odd user experience, user journey, I suppose, in terms of digital behavior. But we're like the shop window, or indeed the front door. And we want people to continue that journey to visit their library either in person or online. And like I say, that user experience that you might get if you land on a local authority website might not be great. Our hope is that perhaps the LibraryOn one might mitigate some of that. So some of the highlights from marketing. We found that 21% of people who landed on our site as a result of paid marketing, 21% of those made an onward journey to their local library website, or at least exited our site to a local library website, which suggests a really strong conversion rate. Most conversion rates for this kind of stuff would be below 10%, I gather. So that was really, really encouraging. Last year, we featured 57 library authorities across our social media activity, whether as official collaborations or otherwise. We had almost 25,000 views on Instagram and Facebook. We filmed at 9 libraries. I got my son to appear in a reel for the summer reading challenge. One way around difficulty around permissions for getting children on screen is to just use your own child. We had these are some of the ads that we kind of ran last year. So this kind of My Library Is approach came out of work with an agency, and it allows us to use that device in a number of different ways. So My Library is my tech support, My Library is my sewing circle, My Library is my book group, My Library is my child entertainment solution. There are any number of ways that you can use that kind of My Library Is thing. So we've been using that across ads and in our social media. We have a paid campaign on the go at the moment as well, I think, where we're testing a couple of new approaches. And that in this kind of marketing approach, we've targeted parents and carers of young children, students, retirees, and one other, which I can't remember right now. That's bad, isn't it? Young professionals, or professionals broadly. That is the audience that is hardest to reach for us, probably for library staff as well, because it's so broad. It's hard to know how to drill down and address them. I do find it interesting that self-service libraries that can open longer hours might be more accessible for that kind of audience. So that's something that we're kind of conscious of and thinking about in terms of how we might target that kind of audience. But yeah, I'd say the last year in terms of advertising and using social media has been about testing and seeing what resonates and what lands, and then taking that forward to refine that further. We've dipped our toe into telling quite emotive stories. We don't want to lean on tearjerkers too much. But as I said, one of the unique things libraries can genuinely lay claim to is that they can and do transform lives. And many brands would love that. Ian on the left here was agoraphobic, went through a terrible time in the pandemic, had a bereavement, basically didn't leave his house for a couple of years until he was referred to a Reading for Wellbeing group locally to him in Newcastle. He went along, he loved it, he built a little community. He became more involved in volunteering himself, and it is, he would say himself that the library changed his life, turned his life around. And yeah, I just think it's really interesting that probably every library service has stories like that. And we don't want people in floods of tears every time they land on our site or anything, but there are benefits to having access to those kind of stories. On the right here as well, this is a video we did in Kensington and Chelsea about a sewing group that is creating a memorial quilt for the Grenfell tragedy, and a lot of the people taking part in that were personally affected. So that again is a very emotive story. In the middle is a story we did with RNIB around the Envoy Connect device that they have been offering to blind and partially sighted people through Camden libraries. This was part of our grants program. And yeah, we made a video about that as well, which was really had a volunteer who is blind and partially sighted teaching another blind and partially sighted person how to use the device. Really great to capture that excitement of getting access to this device. Didn't say what the device does, did I? It allows them to listen to audiobooks through a really user-friendly interface. And it's got a nice tactile kind of front to it, and yeah, it's really good. So it was really great to be able to tell stories such as those. And then we've tried to go, I guess, similar to the special collections, we've tried to learn where there's stuff in the archives or stuff related to national events that we might be able to plug into. So last year we went to Brent Libraries, which has a collection around Wembley Stadium. And we got our hands on some stuff from Euro 96, which we kind of put out alongside the European Championships, the Men's European Championships last year. Similarly, they had stuff related to the Olympics in London in 1948. So we were able to do some stuff with that when the Olympics happened. So try and do some stuff like that that kind of ties in with national events. Sometimes it goes down well, sometimes it kind of falls a little flat, but as I said, it's about testing things and seeing what resonates. In the middle here, we've got Kensington and Chelsea's amazing archive of Vogue magazines from like the 60s and before. And then on the right, they also have some Japanese rice paper drawings, which are tremendously fragile. And we got a librarian to go on screen talking about them and, you know, the significance of them, etc. So trying to demonstrate that libraries do all of this stuff, but they also have a whole lot of other stuff that you might not see on the day-to-day, but technically you are allowed to access. You know, sometimes you just have to know that it's there and know that you can ask to see it. So we, alongside the marketing activity, we created a marketing community of practice for people who do marketing at libraries, to which you're invited, by the way, everyone here, or your colleagues, if you are in marketing for public libraries. As part of that, Jenny put together a marketing pack with generic kind of assets that libraries could use on their social channels or on their websites or however they like, really. If they were lacking certain imagery around certain audiences or certain messaging, this pack kind of put a lot of that stuff together and they could use as they wished. That's not going to be suitable for every offer. You know, understandably, you want to keep certain local character for some of your messaging, but in other ways, sometimes you just need that one stock image and you don't want it to be a lousy stock image. You want it to be a stock image of people in a library. So, you know, we've got a lot of those. So we are happy to share those with libraries and people who can benefit from them. I'll just pick out this kind of element of the social media stuff that we've done over the last year. For Green Libraries Week, we did a Pass the Phone collaboration with 10 library services. This was like a relay, I guess. You know, one library says, we have such and such a thing. Now we're going to pass over to this library service, and the video switches to another library service, and they talk about something cool that they have. And what this does very effectively is it leverages the audiences of all those 10 library services. Plus we got the British Library to post it as well. So it went down really well. The library services that took part were really enthusiastic to get involved. They had fun with it. You know, it wasn't overly produced. Some of the clips were quite rough and ready. That's fine. That goes down fine on social. So yeah, that was really good fun. And we repeated it in January with a collaboration, again, with, I think it was with 10 library services or thereabouts, based on resolutions that people could do at the library. So I've gone through a lot of the stuff that we've done. I'm coming back now to the things that we were supposed to deliver on as part of our Council England grant, our funding. We were supposed to develop a beta platform and test with at least 20% of library authorities. 72% of library services in England have been involved in testing or are wider community of practice. We were tasked with delivering a grants program reaching up to 50 local authorities to improve their web presences. 81 library services are benefiting from those grants. So we achieved that one. And then we were tasked with scoping requirements for interoperability with public library websites or library management systems. So we piloted the catalog search. We're exploring further LMS integrations, partly through events. We're implementing that events integration. We're embedding library virtual tours. So that was always a tricky one to define, but I think we've made a reasonably good fist at that one. So I haven't got long left, have I? On to challenges we've faced. Right. At times, I will say that it has felt like us trying to build a digital front door for libraries versus 152 library authority datasets with no standardization. Having a little bit of fun here, but yes, the data question has been challenging. There's no standardized like data schema that everyone kind of feeds into. It is challenging. It underpins everything that we want to do, basically. But as mentioned previously, having people like Dave Rowe from Libraries Hacked in the conversation has been really helpful. And there are conversations happening and work happening through Arts Council England that are kind of making moves around this. We might still face challenges like this. This came up a couple of weeks ago when we were going through opening times on our library pages. We're like, how do we show that somewhere closes at dusk? This is a community.
These little vampire icons, like
yeah. Yeah, we were thinking about triangulating with sunsetting times and that altering the time at which but I think this is a community managed library, so you know, they are arguably more able to respond to local need, and if local people know that the library is open for that long, I mean that kind of works. It just presents a challenge for us as at a national level. But as I said, there are kind of things happening in that area that are going to hopefully make things a bit easier. We have endeavored to work in an agile way. I won't go into product development methodologies too much, but essentially agile is a way of defining small pieces of work, delivering them and testing them on an iterative basis. And the idea there is that it allows a certain flexibility in terms of your final product. So if you test something that doesn't resonate with the user needs of your audience, you haven't overcommitted resources into it, and you don't need to undo loads of work. So this is how we've tried to work, but we are not in an environment in which that is the norm. We're working with local authorities. They don't work that way. We're working with the British Library. They don't work that way. And so that has been challenging, but, you know, I think where we've had successes doing this, it has been noticed and it has kind of inspired certain, you know, certain working practices, I would say, maybe at the British Library, and to an extent, local authorities. I will say, you know, to say libraries are not agile is not fair. You know, if we look at what happened during the pandemic and how libraries pivoted to serve their communities, that is the ultimate in agility. But what I'm talking about here specifically is like around the digital product side of things. But, you know, for example, we put together our events functionality recently within just a few weeks. We're now iterating on that. We're not fully as agile as we'd like to be, but we do what we can. Other challenges, I think expectations have been tricky after 10 or more years of single digital presence being discussed and not a lot of tangible output. It was understandable that in that time, people would develop their own perceptions of what it is and what it should be. And so when we started releasing our early beta versions, I think they felt underwhelming and perhaps disappointing. But there was a job for us to do there around engagement and education as to how we were approaching the program in this kind of iterative fashion. We were never going to be able to solve this whole thing within a year, within 2 years. I mean, even with 5 years, it's going to be a challenge. But we've worked hard to build partnerships and communicate the vision of what LibraryOn could be, because to a certain extent, that should be up to what the sector wants and needs. So hopefully we've got a few more people on side than we did at the start. And then finally, logistics have been hard, I would just say. Setting up shoots through library local authority permission procedures, especially if there are kids involved, etc. That's been really challenging, hence why I put my son on camera. But, you know, we've built a lot of good relationships there as well. And once you've done it once, it's easier to do it again. Okay, the future and how you can help us build it. I'm going to have to whiz through this as well. Some things we have coming up. We're going to be refining our events offer. So we want to be able to put events on the map. They're not on the map currently, they're just a listing. So we're working on that. This is a little sneak peek of what that might look like. And we want to curate events across the site. So we don't want events just to live on one page on the website. We want to distribute them across the site so that you are served a relevant event thing, depending on where you are, both on the site and in the country, ideally. So we're thinking about that at the moment. We've got more special collection stories coming up about all these kind of interesting things. Won't dwell on that too much. We've got a marketing community of practice, as I said. More people are welcome to join that. It's been really useful to kind of brainstorm ideas, I think, for, you know, certain events and what have you. And here are 3 easy ways you can get involved. You can sign up to our newsletter. Just email hello@libraryon.org to be added to the mailing list. Sorry, we don't have a form to sign up for that just yet. You could join a drop-in or a community of practice expert session. The next ones of these are both next week. Drop-in is on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Expert session around how to get the best out of special collections in libraries is next Friday. But if you register for them, you'll be sent the recordings if you can't attend. And then you can connect with us on social media as well. We're always looking to do more collaborations and see what libraries are up to, you know, pass the phone type stunts, etc., etc. So yeah, you can connect with us there as well. And that's me. Thank you very much for listening. Questions?
Yeah, that was so good. Stuart, that was so rich, incredible. So I'm going to stop the recording here and then we can go to the Q&A.